All right, welcome to GED Social Studies Level 3 practice test. And so what that means is that we have 4 practice tests altogether. Level 4 is the hardest. Level 1 is the easiest. So there's 20 questions. All of the questions are in the description. So what I would recommend doing is going in there, answering all the questions, then coming back here, watch the video, see how you did, and make sure you have a good understanding of all the important concepts that we go over. As far as like what's kind of score you want to be looking for, um, so you need a 145 on each subject area. And so that's the minimum score to pass on each of the tests. Um, and so what that really would mean is like something about 65%. 145 and around 65% are about the same, right? So that would be 13 out of 20 is 65% on this practice test. So that would be sort of like a minimum. If you have any interest possibly in going to college, then you really want to be much more around the 75 to 80% range. So that's what I would be focusing on, is somewhere 75 to 80% correct is what I would feel good about. If you're there, you take the practice and you're at that 75 to 80% range or better, great. I would say move on to level 4, see what happens there. If you're doing well in all those, you're probably ready for the test. If you're not there, if you're down in like 40 or 50% range or something like that, no big deal. It just means you need more work, right? And so uh, we have more specific videos also in the description, so you might want to look at those. Perhaps that would help, like especially as they're connected with questions that you've missed. But really, what I would recommend is download our app. It's free to install. You get thousands of questions with detailed feedback for each question, and the app will figure out where you're weaker and where you're stronger based on your answers and be able to recommend specific videos for you as well. And honestly, the app is a lot more interactive and engaging than listening to me. So that's what I would do. I would be doing this just to get a sense of where you are and how much you need to study. Or not. Perhaps you're ready to go. Okay, so enough of that. Let's get going here. We got 20 questions to get to. Looks like we already got the first one circled here with Thomas Jefferson, who is credited with being the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. We want to know Thomas Jefferson, very important person in U.S. history. He was an American founding father. He was the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, and he also was the third president of the U.S. from 1801 to 1809. So that's the big stuff we want to know on good old Thomas Jefferson. Main weakness of the Articles of Confederation. Okay, so we definitely want to know that. Very, very common question. Bam. Weak federal government. Articles of Confederation, we want to connect that with a weak federal government, much more so than anything else. The Articles of Confederation, it was an agreement between all 13 states and served as the first constitution in 1776. Some things to know about the Articles of Confederation and why we say that it had a weak federal government. There was no president, no executive agencies, no judiciary, and no tax base. The new constitution that would show up in 1789 would have a much stronger federal government with a president, courts, and taxes. Okay, Bill of Rights. Which of these is not a part of Bill of Rights? Federalism, freedom of speech, right to bear arms, term limits. Okay, term limits came much later. Right, so right now the term limits for presidency is 2 terms, right? 2 4-year terms. So that was created in 1951 and is the 22nd Amendment. However, freedom of speech, right to bear arms, and federalism are all part of the Bill of Rights. Okay, House of Burgesses. So what was this? What was the House? Right, and we want to know it was the first legislative body of the American colonies. Right, it was the first legislative assembly of elected representatives in North America. It was established by the Virginia Company which established the House in an effort to get English craftsmen to settle in the colonies, as well as to make conditions more agreeable for the current colonists. Okay, jumping back to the Bill of Rights again. Bill of Rights was influenced by all the following, except which of these? Greater constitutional protection for individual liberties. That certainly sounds like Bill of Rights, Declaration of Independence. Natural law, a big part of both Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights. The Magna Carta, which was in 1215, but had a big influence, even though it had been, 500 years before. But the need for a strong central government was not a big part of the Bill of Rights, right? We were just coming from English rule and very afraid of what a strong central government could do. So especially when the Bill of Rights was developed, and that would be connected with the Articles of Confederation, right? And there was a pretty weak central government as we started in 1776. Okay, laws made by one person, such as a king or a queen, would be considered what type of government? Okay, and that answer is, give me my pen, monarchy. Monarchy is the rule of one person. And aristocracy is the rule of elite class. Theocracy is the rule of the church. Anarchy is the rule of the mob. Okay, so those are the four there. Each of the following influenced the Declaration of Independence, except Magna Carta, right? So we just mentioned that, I think, 2 questions ago, right? The Magna Carta is a big deal. The Enlightenment, the French Revolution, the writings of John Locke. Okay, so the French Revolution is in 1789. Declaration of Independence, 1776. So, really, the Declaration of Independence influenced the French Revolution, much more so than the other way around. The Magna Carta limited the powers of the King of England in 1215. The focus of the Enlightenment on individual rights and reason strongly influenced the Founding Fathers. And the writings of John Locke mirror that of the Declaration of Independence in significant ways. So John Locke definitely has a big influence on the Declaration of Independence as well. Okay, and then these questions are somewhat connected. Which philosopher is credited with sentiments that helped drive Declaration of Independence? Okay, so all these guys are great writers. Very famous, very significant. But John Locke is really the name to know, right? When you're thinking philosophers, writers that helped influence Declaration of Independence, if you see John Locke, that's going to be the answer. Locke believed that people are born with certain natural rights, such as life, liberty, and property, right? You can find that right in the Declaration of Independence. That's John Locke's concept first. Locke embodied the principles of enlightenment and was a clear influence on the Founding Fathers, the Declaration of Independence. Okay, so the fact that he just showed up in back-to-back questions like this, right? Question 7, right? He wasn't the answer, but he was one of the answer choices, and so it was important to know him to be able to answer that question. And in this one, he actually is the answer. Should tell you, like, this guy was really important, right? And it's important to know his name, and it's very likely to show up in some form on the actual exam. Okay, question 9. Which of the following is a domestic impact of tariffs? Okay, so the domestic impact on tariffs. So if the U.S. has tariffs, what is the impact within the country? Less competition. Tariffs, they are a boon to domestic producers who will now face reduced competition in their home market. The reduced competition causes prices to rise. The sales of domestic producers should also rise, all else being equal. The tariffs also increase government revenues that can be used to the benefit of the economy. It should be noted that almost all economists agree that tariffs are bad for the economy and that the increased prices are more of a negative than the increased government revenue and domestic production. So there you go. There's some stuff on tariffs. Tariffs, interestingly, like on our videos about the economy, generate some interesting comments. So we certainly welcome your comments, but everything that I just said there is really not an opinion, right? And if you happen to disagree with that, you should still understand this is what economists think, right? Your opinion isn't going to count for much on this test, right? In your personal life, it's valuable, and you can argue tariffs, right? Almost everything about the economy can be argued, but you want to make sure that from an economic standpoint, the belief is that tariffs cause less competition domestically. Okay. Price is a reflection of, is it supply, demand? So when you see this supply, and demand, at least cross out elasticity, right? We have three answers that are so connected. You can be pretty sure that's not what they were looking for. Give a little more info here on supply and demand. Demand refers to how much of a product or service is desired by buyers. The quantity demanded is the amount of a product people are willing to buy at a certain price, while supply represents how much the market can offer. The quantity supplied refers to the amount of a certain good producers are willing to supply when receiving a certain price. Okay, so that might be obvious, but nevertheless, price is a reflection of the combination of supply and demand. Okay, and then we jump into the FDIC and the SEC. So they were created in response to what? And so that answer is the Great Depression. So FDIC, that's Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, and it was created to protect depositors' accounts, and the SEC, which is the Securities and Exchange Commission, was to regulate the stock market and prevent abuses of the kind that led to the 1929 crash, right? And so the 1929 stock market crash, Black Tuesday, signifies the beginning of the Great Depression. Okay, and then we have a question here about Federal Reserve monetary policy. Which of these is not an objective? And printing currency is not an objective of the Federal Reserve. So let's talk about the Federal Reserve for a second. It is the central banking system of the U.S. The United States Congress established three key objectives for monetary policy in the Federal Reserve Act, and those three key objectives are maximizing employment, stabilizing prices, and moderating long-term interest rates. It is true that its duties have expanded over the years, and that could include supervising and regulating banks and maintaining the stability of the financial system. But the three tenets that you're most likely to be questioned on are the maximizing employment, stabilizing prices, and moderating long-term interest rates. Okay, what is the role of labor in economics? All right, so we all kind of know what labor is, but economists tend to have, different answers than a lot of the rest of us do. Okay, so labor turns capital into products and services. A business starts with capital, then puts people to work in order to offer a product. As we look at kind of like a basic example, like if you eat a burger at Wendy's, there are many people which are represented by labor, who either made the burger, worked the cash register, marketed the product to you in an appealing way, things like this. This is true of every business. Okay, and then we have laissez-faire capitalism. So laissez-faire capitalism has been mentioned on previous practice tests, and so it's a real important concept, right? When you hear a concept again and again, that should just register in our minds. Important concept. Really want to be familiar with what laissez-faire capitalism means. And interestingly, this is the answer. So here's some information about laissez-faire capitalism. In French, laissez-faire means leave alone, and this means that the government leaves the people alone regarding all economic activities, right? So prior to the Great Depression, that is how we ran our economy in the U.S., but it is no longer true. So it's the separation of economy and state. Adam Smith is given credit for being the first to develop the idea of laissez-faire capitalism. While the U.S. is a capitalist nation, its government still regulates fair trade, government programs, moral business, monopolies, and so forth, right? And so, as an example, because we regulate monopolies, that is not an example of laissez-faire capitalism. Okay, and jumping right back into monopolies here. Why does the U.S. try to keep monopolies from forming? Like, why? What's so bad about monopolies? If somebody built a business that's that good, why not just let them keep it? Monopolies inhibit competition. So a monopoly is a company that really controls whole industries. This makes it very hard or practically impossible for other companies to compete, which in turn weakens the economy as a whole. And that's the main problem we have with monopolies, right? That's a good one to know. Okay, minimum wage. So 3 of these are a purpose of minimum wage. 1 is not. So helping employers find cheap labor is not a purpose of minimum wage, right? If they really want, without minimum wage, is they would be able to find even cheaper labor, right? So the purpose of minimum wage was to stabilize post-depression economy and protect the workers in the labor force. Minimum wage was designed to create a minimum standard of living to protect the health and well-being of employees. Unhighlight, okay. Alrighty, different type of question here. Increasing concentrations of greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide, are an indication of global warming. Hopefully it was the answer that you picked. A lot of people do pick ozone layer depletion, right? But we want to know the basic difference. We don't have to get into a lot of detail of these terms here. So global warming and climate change are terms for the observed century scale rise in the average temperature of the Earth's climate system and its related effects. Global warming is mostly being caused by human activities, mainly increasing concentration of greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide. Okay, very likely to be tested on this, possibly in more than one in one subject area too. So that also is a question that shows up in science quite a bit. By quite a bit, I mean like consistently on one exam after another. There'll probably be one question specifically about global warming. Which of the following is a renewable resource? Okay, also very important. So natural gas, coal, and crude oil, none of those are renewable. Renewable energy is energy generated from natural resources. So that would mean like something like from sunlight, wind, rain, tides, or geothermal heat, which are renewable, meaning that they're naturally replenished. Renewable energy technologies range from solar power, wind power, hydroelectricity, biomass, and biofuels for transportation. Okay, and then what is an attraction of fossil fuels, right? So fossil fuels are not renewable. They do cause pollution, but in many cases, they are still cheaper, right, than the renewable resources. Okay, and finally, question 20, the last one here. Okay, so population growth and urbanization have had, and we want to know, has had a negative impact on the environment. Um, Urbanization has led to the use of non-renewable resources that lead to things like air pollution and deforestation. Okay, so that gets us to the end of level 3. So hopefully it went well. If there's anything that I said that didn't make sense or you'd like further explanation, let me know in the comments, and we will respond and hopefully have a good conversation about it. And if there are videos that you think you would like to see, let us know, and we'll take a look at trying to make those for you. All right, thanks, guys.